Great. Well, we're here in the studio of Jane McCormack in Llanfair Hangol. And first question that we're asking with regards to the retake project is what work did you choose in the collection from the National Museum, and why did you choose it?
That was a moment, yeah. Well, I know why I chose it. I chose it because I think there was nothing to compare. It just hit me. It hit me like a burst of light. It was so uplifting. I just woke up the next morning and I knew that it had to be the Hodgkin that led me, although I realised it was going to be a very difficult choice. So it really took me on a trip back to when I was a student, and Hodgkin was one of the people that I really looked up to. I think maybe it's because nobody gives them a plan of what to think. And you've got to reach out to Hodgkin with your emotion or your, just got to let it come to you. They're just so wonderful. So I had to get over the hurdles of what I was not going to do.
Right.
So I wasn't going to do this framing device. I wasn't going to make small jewels like he does of paintings, but I was going to use memory. I was going to use memory. I was going to enjoy colour, connected to landscape, so contrasty landscapes. And I was fortunate that I had the opportunity to visit a few different far-flung places.
Is this a familiar kind of a process for you, or does it fit quite well, or is it very different?
No, it's quite familiar because of having worked collaboratively for a number of years. 20 years I was involved in a group, and we worked with abstract musicians and we painted collaboratively, and I've got a lot of experience of doing that, but that was with some other artists. So in a way you were equals, but in a way you weren't it's not like being on your own. So you have to be a lot braver on your own, I think. You see, they're not going to be a big painting, but they're just waking up that, place where I was.
Yeah.
Well, that
is, if you can reference
that's
places
the volcanic rock, and it had this kind of creamy coloured moss growing on it. You can straddle the plates. Iceland is a work in progress.
Yes.
The landscape's not finished off. It's like it's being created still, and it's obvious to see that. I'd actually thought I wouldn't have any problem being more abstract, but I did. It didn't just happen like that.
Yeah.
I could do it instantly. Although, as a student, I'd worked more abstractly. Yeah, so I can do the figurative work. It's not a problem.
Yeah. And
there's a certain satisfaction in being able to reproduce a scene. So I call these snapshots because that's what they are. There were things I tried. Well, this is hardly anything, but that was sort of to break up the edge of it a bit. But then I just let myself. That one was a bit designed, but that was from a sketch. These others are just like snapshots of the place. It's so that is contrived because what you're planning to do, but you don't know what that is. You know that you've got a plan, but you don't know what it is.
Sure.
And then you do, and then you have to step back and then come and look at a later time. But even so, I find it very difficult to assess the work mostly I can only accept it for what it is.
Yeah.
Because it was done in sort of it's done as truthfully. There isn't a contrivance. There's not even particular cleverness. You know, there's just this response to something that I've held within me since I've seen that place, taken in those impressions, like breathe them in. Yeah. So I set myself the target. And I braced myself, and I sort of let it tick over for a while, maybe a few days, maybe a week or so, but I know that's my focus, is what I'm going to do. And then I'll have the space set up. I might have music, like with that one, we had the Sega music going. And then I just do it. And then after that, all the doubts set in.
Yeah.
So it's a sort of build up, do the act, and then I just have to walk away until I'm a bit more distant from it.
Yeah, okay, so these are dances, these are ones you kind of did and left behind, as it were.
Yes, yes, and this is where it was getting a bit more, a bit less obvious as to what it was, but it was that warm colour which was, of course, the Hodgkin, but that was the colour of a dancer as well. And that would have been one of the early ones there, even just dancing. And these are the paintings that informed that large canvas. But, I wasn't going to go down there any further. That was as far as I was going to go, really, was this one.
Yeah.
You see, I pushed it a bit, but then it was going to have to, it just wasn't turning into an abstract painting.
Yeah.
This was finally being able to break away from the representational, but using elements from them, like the plants, the colours of the girls' frocks, and the dark of the tropical night. And I painted it with the Sega music, that's the local music. It's sort of salsa, African salsa, and it's a particular rhythm. So I just let myself go. And as I say, I find it very hard to assess it at the end, but that's what I did, and it sort of summed up that movement and the music of the dance. This is Icelandic soil.
Okay.
And I brought it home for the colour.
Yeah.
So I've got that there. And these are Icelandic crow feathers. So that again serves to remind me. And this painting is about that turmoil in the landscape. And it's got these milky blue areas which are reminiscent of the geothermal areas, the hot springs, and the geyser. And then just the colour of the rocks that I could remember, and I painted it, and it was all going a bit too wild, I thought, so I had to wipe some of it off, and I've left it. I was quite pleased with it. I like the colours, so that's really the painting I like.
Yeah,
really,
it's got a nice structure to it, hasn't it?
It's just
These
happened.
big areas kind of balanced.
It's just happened, and I wouldn't want to touch it again, actually.
You kind of desire, I would think, from looking at the painting, to put a lot of emotional content into the mark, into the brush mark.
I have to agree with that, Andrew. Even more than colour is the mark, and the mark is like right from my centre. Yeah, it's definitely not from up here, it's from here. But I do not have any faith in my ability to, if there's something that looks like it needs resolving, obviously at the time when I'm painting I can do it. But to come back and then say this needs and to know what it needs. I don't know, I'm not very trusting of my ability to do that. But they didn't, I thought they was going to inform my painting, but this painting is quite green and it reminds me, I went to this, well, one of the things about going was to go to pamplemousses. Pamplemousses is where you have these Amazonian water lily pads, which are like dishes. You know, it flows up and down the canvas. I worked on it a couple of times, and then I wasn't making it any better, so I've left it. You know, I like these areas. I like it, but it's also very difficult because you can get lost. It's easy to get lost when you're working from the intuition.
Is your studio kind of, you know, part concept, or is it just a kind of physical space? I mean, you've got 2 or 3 sections to your studio.
By conceptual, I wasn't quite sure what you meant, and I thought, well, we've all got a studio in our minds, and we do work, a lot of our work there, but I have to have a physical space. But actually, Andrew, I think I live in a conceptual studio, is the place I live, really, because it's with me all the time. The physical place, I mean, I'm really fortunate that I've got this large space, but it has been hard won. It's only been here for a couple of years. It used to be the goat shed.
And do you do use the landscape a lot?
Yeah.
Do you see yourself as a landscape painter, perhaps?
Yeah, primarily landscape, and my emotional response to the landscape. And I have to say, Wales, well, why I'm here is this landscape. I mean, I can look out this window now and look over to the Berwins, covered in snow. It's just a prime place for landscape. I feel very closely attached to the landscape. I'm protective of it as well. You know, I'm very concerned about things to do with the landscape. My place has been designated a coronation meadow because it has natural wildflower meadows. And, you know, I work to preserve that, so it's important.
What do you like about working in North Wales?
Oh, I like the people. I like the hill people, because I live high up. The people around here, they're a bit different to lowlanders, and I feel safe with them. But then I love the scenery, I love the landscape scenery. I grew up in Fulham, didn't have any landscape much there.
But do you care where your work goes when it leaves the studio?
No. I'd rather that it didn't get too decomposed or mouldy. I'd rather it was looked after, but I don't have a preference as to where it goes. Well, the project, I think I'm really, really pleased with the project and how it has encouraged me to push boundaries, to go into a zone which has perhaps not been the most comfortable.
Is that the Hodgkin and that process and the way that you approach painting? It's quite close, in actual fact. It does seem like you've picked on a kindred spirit.
Thanks, Andrew.
Rather than a sort of separate kind of empirical kind of study of an older painting or something that's detached. It's actually
because I am very, in all humility, I know where I am, but really, like I think I said once, it's the love of paint. It's just that delight in paint and moving paint around. I just say, Andrew, just to you, that when I very first felt paint on the end of a brush, I was in a community arts course before I'd done my foundation, I'd only ever drawn before. I'd not painted, and I got paint on the end of my brush, and it was like aligned to my, I don't know, it was like, it was amazing, just the feel of it and what I could do with it. It just, yeah.
I do have to say thank you very much, Jane, for letting us into your studio.
You're most welcome, and please come again.
Good.